Hi everyone, and welcome to Tribe Talks, where I talk about a tribe from Magic the Gathering, what makes it interesting, how it wants to be played, and perhaps what kind of new support I would like to see it get someday. Today's topic is devils. If demons are the apes of the underworld, devils are the monkeys. These mischievous meddlers were introduced way back in Arabian Nights, but ironically remained pretty idle until Innistrad, with only 4 cards released before that time. A devil's hands are never idle playthings, and you know what God thinks about that. There are currently 24 devil cards in the game, a small enough number that I will be talking about all of them. Devil's Play is not one of them though. Neither is Tibble. Most devil cards revolve around aggressive red creatures and burn damage, but other smaller themes include instant and sorcery matters and punisher effects. The first card is the oldest card and also the only mono black devil card, Stone Throwing Devils. It's a 1/1 with First Strike for a black mana, not the greatest. First Strike is great with 1 toughness, but terrible with 1 power. Most devils are mono red, and I'll tell you right now that it's not worth it to go into black just for this. However, these guys are interesting because they caused a small controversy. It turns out that Stone Throwing Devil is some kind of racial slur in a country outside of the US. What I read online, and take this with a grain of salt, is that it directly translates to an Israeli slur for a Palestinian. I doubt Richard Garfield, the American who made this set, knew anything about this when he made the card, but it does mean that it's on the unspoken reserved list, right alongside Invoke Prejudice. Next is Forge Devil. It's one of the burn damage devil cards. You can get a little extra value out of it if you can kill something like a 2-mana 2/1 and have a 1/1 left over. It's not that great and constructed, but I believe in Innistrad Limited it was at least decent. Next is one of my favorite artworks in Magic, and a big beating in a small package, Rakdos Cackler. This was part of the 1-mana hybrid uncommon cycle from Return to Ravnica, which I'm sad didn't get continued in Gatecrash. Anyway, you would pretty much always play this as a 2/2 that can't block, and those Isamaru stats meant it got played a decent amount in standard aggro decks at the time. Definitely worth running. Are you hardcore? Because our next card is Vexing Devil. This is one of the 2 devils with a Punisher effect, which refers to a card such as Browbeat or Book Burning, where the opponent is forced to pick his or her, their, poison. Usually these effects aren't very good because while both options are strong, your opponent will always choose the one that's least harmful at the time. However, Vexing Devil has seen a decent amount of constructed play. Let's see why. It's a 4/3 for just 1 red mana, but your opponent can lose 4 life to destroy it when it's played. This card is good in an aggressive deck, because in that case, both modes basically amount to the same thing, damage. 4 points of direct damage or a 4/3 attacker serve the same end in an aggro deck, and at a fantastic rate for 1 mana. This card is very deck dependent, but it packs a wallop in the right one. Gibbering Fiend is the first 2-mana devil. It's a 2/1 that does 1 burn damage when you play it, and if you meet the Delirium requirement, having 4 card types in your graveyard, it hits your opponent every turn, again for 1 damage. It's nothing spectacular, but it's a decent little aggressive card that even saw a bit of fringe play as standard. Probably the best 2-mana devil at the moment, so you will want to play it for sure if you're trying to make a devil tribal deck. I wonder what his gibbering sounds like though. I always think of Zoidberg. Scalding Devil is a 1/1 for 2 mana, so the effect better be good. It's not. Paying 3 mana per 1 damage is awful, especially when it can only hit players. Run Gibbering Fiend or Forge Devil before this guy. Heck, run most devils before you look at this one. Squealing Devil is not a pig, it's a devil. It was one of the 4 pre-Innistrad devils. It's got a lot going on, but nothing all that great. First of all, the 1R cost is a bit of a trick because if you don't pay black on that generic cost, you'll be sacrificing this right after playing. It's got Fear, which is alright, although irritatingly situational. It also doubles as a bad in Rage since you can pay X beyond the 2 mana to cast it to give a creature extra power for a turn. It's got a lot of modes, which is nice, but unfortunately none of them are all that great or mana efficient. It's another black-ish devil that's not worth splashing for. Torch Fiend is a really evil-looking guy, but he's just burning some curtains, no big deal. It's again a 2/1 because at the time red didn't get bears, but you can sacrifice it to destroy an artifact. Are curtains artifacts? I guess so. Anyway, it's another decent 2-drop with some extra utility that there's no reason not to play in a devil's deck, at least at the moment. Heckling Fiends, hands down, has my favorite artwork in the game. I love the guy on the left, he looks so mischievous. They're really adorable too. They're holding hands. Anyway, the card's just alright. The 2/2 body is not good for 3 mana, and the ability, while powerful, is mana intensive. You can force an opponent to have a smaller creature suicide into your bigger one, which is great. The problem for devils, though, is that there aren't many bigger ones, not to mention the 6 mana you have to pay for the first use. Make Mischief is the first of a vertical cycle in the second Innistrad block. All the cards in this cycle create some number of devil tokens that deal 1 damage when they die. This one also deals 1 damage upon casting as a bonus. These are decently efficient cards purely by the numbers, but the problem is that the damage is spread out over so many 1 damage effects over so many points in time that it's hard to use it to its full potential. I don't recommend it. Next is Rakdos Keyrune, and this is probably the only black devil card worth splashing for. Not to mention, it helps you splash black too. The Keyrunes were cards in the Return to Ravnica block that tapped for mana, or could become a creature for a turn. This was one of the better ones and saw a lot of constructed play. You could leave up 2 mana during your opponent's turn, and the threat of activation was enough to stave off a lot of attacks due to it having first strike. It's also like a vehicle, in that you can attack with it on your turn, and then it becomes very difficult to kill with creature removal on your opponent's turn. I'm not including this in my tribal mana curve at the end, since I focused on mono red devils, but this is still absolutely worth consideration. That flavor text is pretty questionable, though. What did they use it for that I'm not thinking of? Because I'm thinking of a lot. Maybe Oculus knows? Ha! Riot Devils is a 3 mana 2/3 vanilla. It's pack filler in a purchase, deck filler in limited, and dumpster filler everywhere else. Don't bother. Sin Prodder is the other devil with the Punisher effect. It's a 3/2 with Menace for 3, which is already better than Riot Devils. Plus, it has a very long card effect. Basically, each turn you can draw an extra card, but if your opponent pays life equal to its cost, you have to discard it. It's not the best since your opponent gets to choose between 2 very different effects, unlike Vexing Devil. It's also optimized in a deck with expensive cards, since an opponent can only pay 5 or 6 life a few times before dying. There may be a decent mid-range spells devil deck out there, but in an aggro build, you can mostly expect this to do 0 to 3 damage in a turn. Because yeah, if you draw a land, it's off to the graveyard with no cost to your opponent. Still though, an evasive 3-drop that gets some extra burn damage in and maybe draws you a card is one of the better options devils have to them, so I recommend using it. You ever danced with the devil? Well, these guys have danced with themselves, so I guess that counts. This is the second in that token making cycle I mentioned earlier, and it's quite a bit better since it's an instant that can make some surprise blockers. However, you're probably just better off running Lightning Bolt. It's a pretty good limited card, but I don't recommend putting it into your constructed deck. Certainly the best 4 mana devil is Hellrider. Was this the guy that tortured the dreams of Wesley Willis? Dang, I miss that guy. Anyway, this is one of the best devils there is, and a great top end to an aggressive curve which saw a great deal of play in Standard. Getting in 1 extra unblockable damage for every attacker, including itself, ends a lot of games really quickly. This is the closest thing there is to a devil's staple. Hulking Devil is just a functional reprint of Cobblebrute. Neither are good. They'd add just about any cheaper card out there. Maybe if this guy traded his Devil's Hands for some Hulk Hands, things would have been different. For shame. Impetuous Devils is a more expensive ball lightning, but for the extra mana, you get to force 1 creature to block if you want. Sort of the opposite of Heckling Fiends. It's a bit more versatile burn card that can take out a lot of pesky defensive creatures with tap abilities, or you can just go in for the big kill. It's no Hellrider, but worth considering at 2 or 3 in a Devil's Tribal deck. And, if you're playing some singleton format like Commander, of course you'll run it. You'd probably run a Deviled Egg considering how few your options are right now. Jaloon Grifter is an uncard, but I did say I'd talk about every Devil card, didn't I? Here's another pre-Innistrad card. Anyway, the body is alright for 5 mana, but you wouldn't play it just for that. Its ability is fun and goofy, but not so reliable. Basically, you play one of those cut ball games, whatever that's called, with this and 2 other cards face down. If your opponent guesses wrongly where the devil is, hint, it's in the details, you can destroy any card. Kind of a color play break. I'm not sure Mara would approve. But anyway, if they guess right, the Grifter is destroyed. It's an unreliable but repeatable way to destroy things, but the bigger upside is for anyone who wants to gamble with magic cards again. Ever since Ante was removed from the game, you can't do that anymore. Pitchburn Devils, aka Hold My Brimstone Beer and Watch This Devils, is a decent value card in Limited, where you get a 3/3 for 5 mana that can kill something or finish out a game when it dies. I wouldn't call you a sheep for brains for playing this one, but I really don't recommend it. Scourge Devil, which I keep thinking is Scourge Devils, but no, the other ones in there are dogs, is another of the 4 pre-Innistrad Devils. Like Pitchburn Devils, it's another 5 mana 3/3 with some extra value. The first ability isn't that great when you first play it, since you have to rely on any other creatures you already have to take advantage of the attacking power boost. However, unearthing it from the graveyard later, or after having milled it, gives it haste, so it will come out as a 4/3 attacker for a turn. This card isn't very strong, but it's a really well done design. The two effects complement each other very well. It's a card you'd rather have in your graveyard already than ever draw. Too bad Devils don't know how to self-mill. Not yet. Charmbreaker Devils showcases a minor theme among Devils, instants, and sorceries. This is a nice card for spell-focused decks in slow formats like Commander, but it's not any good in a creature-heavy tribal deck or a low-curve aggressive deck. So while it's not a bad card, it's not a good Devil either. Wait, are there good Devils? Devil's Playground is the last of the token-making cycle. It packs the most punch, but at the highest cost, of course. Given how you have to wait for the Devils to die to get the burn effect, I wish this had been an instant. Your opponent would see it coming from, 6 untapped lands away, but if you could pressure them into attacking anyway, maybe with a Planeswalker already in play, it would be fun to pull off. Also, does anyone find it weird that there seems like a gap in the cycle? I wonder if in Innistrad 3, the I-Files, they'll make a 5 mana one that makes 3 Devils. We'll see. Gang of Devils is a more expensive Pitchburn Devils with the option to split the damage when it dies. It's a little pie in the ashen sky to expect to get a 4-for-1 with one of these, but we can dream, right? Lastly, we have Bedlam Reveler, another one of the best Devils around right now, probably the best. This guy is a steep 8 mana to cast, but you're never going to spend 8 to cast it. Its cost is reduced by each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. It's not going to gel too well in an aggressive Devil tribal deck, but this thing has seen play even in formats like Vintage and Legacy, where cards cost as much as cars. This is a great card in Izzet Delver decks. Turns out cost reduction breaks the game. Who knew? Here's an example curve for an aggressive mono-red Devils deck. Obviously our options are pretty limited right now. You can consider dropping the Impetuous Devils if you have a better idea. Again, I have to cheat and use a Changeling because Devils don't have many great 3-drops, at least in mono-red. I really like these little evil guys, and I'm always happy to see more. Now, if only they'd bring Atox back too. The last thing I'd like to mention is that Devils don't have any support yet. I like to theorize about what form this might take in the future, so here's the obligatory Legendary Devil Lord to appease all the Ulrich haters. I think for a Devil Lord, Hellrider makes a great template. You can make it cheaper and heavier on the red, and have it only affect Devils. A hybrid activated ability like I have at the bottom also throws a bone to any Commander players who want to put one of the few Black Devil cards into a deck, and I think it goes along well with an aggressive strategy regardless. Anyway, that's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. Let me know your thoughts, prayers, and concerns. Thank you.